And when the day of the festival of Shavuot had come, they were all with one mind in one place. And suddenly there came a sound from the heaven as of a rushing mighty wind, and it filled all the house where they were sitting. And there appeared to them divided tongues as of fire and settled on each one of them. And they were all filled with the set apart Spirit and began to speak with other tongues as the Spirit gave them to speak. Hi, this is Mike Clayton and Barry Phillips with Foundations for Life. I started to say Foundations for Torah, Foundations for Life. And today we're going to be discussing the aspect of unity in connection with Shavuot. Mike, how are you this morning? And are you feeling unified with yourself?
Well, I'm doing good. I'm about 2 pounds lighter this week than I was last week. I was able to get a haircut yesterday. Yeah, I was about to go to the dog groomer. It's getting pretty bad, you know. I could have gone in and said, and just walked in with Kaya and said, "Could you give me a trim too?" At the same time, it would have been fine.
The lion cut would have looked good on you.
Yeah, I know. That would have been something. You know, Barry, as you're reading those verses, think back to about 20 years ago, 21, 22 years ago in your own life, and you would have been preparing a message for this coming Sunday,
Pentecost
probably
Sunday,
based upon those verses, what we called in the Assembly of God the 2x4 message, Acts chapter 2, verse 4.
Yes.
And you would have been planning out this incredible emotional service and an altar call, and you know, people coming to be filled with the Spirit. And where did those days go?
Too far. They went too far from us.
Yeah. Did we leave something behind?
Yeah.
Maybe instead of, you know, it's the old throwing out the baby with the bathwater. Maybe it would have been best to clean the bathwater and to save the baby. Just say it.
Just saying, you know, those were days of expectancy. People came to that particular service anticipating what was traditionally prepared. You're right. We very often would preach from Acts 2, 1 through 4. And we would relate the chronology of events throughout the book of Acts, where the new believers would also exhibit evidence of receiving the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit, in an inward dwelling means, with the evidence of praying and speaking in other languages. We built denominations around this.
Yeah.
And
there were numerous church splits regarding this. I mean, the beginning of the Nazarene Church goes back to a split that happened at Azusa Street when Brazil looked at those things and said, "I agree with the basic premise of this infilling, but not this evidence that they are talking about." From there come literally every Pentecostal denomination that is out there. I dare say that today, most of those Pentecostal denominations have pretty much just become, you know, another line of
the evangelical church conglomerate.
Oh yeah, because you have someone today that can walk from a Baptist church to an Assembly of God, to a Church of God, you know, back over to the Vineyard, and then, you know, the next week they're in a Methodist church, and there's really the Pentecostal movement was at one time, they were the people on the other side of the tracks, as we would, you know, kind of an old-fashioned saying there. To go to a Pentecostal church, you're going to be ostracized from your family, from your friends, from old church members. There was going to be that. You just kind of accepted it as you were going to be those people. And now, okay, well, you go to that church, who cares? But I think maybe some of the Hebrew roots walk. Many of us have experienced some of the things that the Pentecostals did in the beginning.
Well, the Church of God that I was raised in, Mike, goes pre-Azusa Street all the way back to 1886.
Yeah.
And it started out with a separatist mindset of pulling away from the traditional church system as it had become in that day, lethargic, very liturgical, more of a religious gathering to satisfy a religious craving and no life change. And I think it was R.G. Sperling began to preach about holiness, an idea of being set apart. Imagine that. Out of that sprang years of fervor, seeking a Pentecostal style experience was given. And those people were shot at, their crops were burned, their meeting houses burned down, they were pelted with rocks, they were ostracized by the community, and they had to endure, and they did so with great joy for a season. I remember as a child that while the Pentecostal aspect was quite readily evidenced, I clearly remember Sunday morning the choir disintegrating, people trying to sing, and after about the 15th round of I Fly Away in the chorus, people and the choir just can't stand still, and they're jumping for joy and running up and down the aisles. It's having Pentecostal pandemonium. And I mean, as a kid, I'm being entertained. This is wonderful.
Oh yeah.
But the hallmark was not so much that as it was holiness that became a separatist aspect. We are holy because we don't wear certain things, our women especially. We don't go to certain places, and we divided ourselves as by what we did not do. Thankfully, that has changed dramatically. Not that we are or they are not seeking to be holy or set apart any longer. It's just the definition of what that means has changed. What about us, Mike? You and I are a part of this Hebraic roots community. It's not an organization. We are actually striving to stay away from denominationalism that most of us all a part of in the past. There's a lot of former Pentecostal church attenders among us. There's a lot of Catholics. There's a lot of people who had no affiliation whatsoever.
Pretty much everybody.
We are seeking to become this cohesive something, a rallying of souls and lives. But for what purpose? Man, I received a correspondence through Messenger yesterday, and thank you, Cheryl, for this. It really stimulated a lot of thinking. Talking about, from a book that she's reading, that man oftentimes will seek to unify, but the call for his unity, even though it is a deep craving in his humanity, at times or oftentimes they will unify around that which is not a part of what Yah is asking for. And so while it's this feel-good, join hands and walk with me, let's all become the one aspect of humanity together. We are the world. Currently, we're all in this together. It's a very feel-good type of thing, but is Yah in it? And if he's not, then we're rallying around the wrong thing, the kingdom of the anti-Messiah is going to be a worldwide rallying, and Revelation says that people will be crying out, "Who is like the beast?" There's no one like him.
Yeah.
It or whatever, however it's going to manifest. And when an image can become animated by the false prophet's power, it's just, it's the proof. This is the thing to be a part of. And if you are not a part of this, you're the opposition. You're dangerous. You can't be trusted. We might need to lock you away. This is for your own safety. All things that we're beginning to hear now. This isn't the first time that this has happened, though, is it?
No, not at all. And I think it comes down to this for me, that when we do not know who we are, we will seek to be defined by what we do.
Say that again.
Okay, when we do not know who we are, we will seek to be defined by what we do.
Well, there is a printable phrase.
And let me explain this.
Please.
And I think it goes to Ramona Frank. I'm going to use her statement probably this weekend. Without Israel as our destination, we are destined to become just another denomination wandering in the wilderness.
Yeah.
Without Israel as our identity, we will seek to be defined by our culture or a counter to that culture.
Yes.
Let's take, for instance, Church of God, Assembly of God, which I was a part of, various other denominations. What separates you from the denominational church next door is, well, they do this, but we don't do that.
Yes.
And they don't do, but we do. And so it's all about human doing, and we're not created to be human doings. We're created to be human beings. So if a person does not understand their identity of their being, then they will be driven by every wind that comes along regarding doing. And that will typically be defined by personalities, be defined by just wanting to be around like-minded, like-acting people. For much of the Hebrew roots community, one of our strengths is also one of our greatest weaknesses, in that most people that are in this movement are the non-compliant children to begin with. When I look back at when I visited my Sunday school class of the church I attended growing up many years ago, when I walked in to the room, it was like, he's back. I was always pushing the envelope. I was never around people that, I never accepted normal as normal.
Right.
Now, when that's great in that it propels you forward, but at some point you got to lose a little bit of that independent nature. And I think that's where it has become the detriment to people in this walk of not trusting one another, of I have my say so, I have my opinion, and I can run with that. So first of all, to go back to identity, when our identity is right, our behavior will line up with that identity. But until the identity is in line with the scripture, we'll be driven all over the place by anybody.
So we are, in your estimation, a accumulation of rebels from wherever it was that we came from.
I would say rebels and renegades, and there's a difference between, a difference between the two. in my estimation.
Think of what happened, Mike, at the original Shavuot, Exodus or Shemot, chapter 19 and 20. In chapter 19, before the giving of the Torah, Yah re-identifies the people. In their estimation, they were escapees from Mitzrayim, refugees.
Mm-hmm.
They still hadn't really grasped the identity and connection to the patriarchs. Maybe they knew that was a part of their history. Maybe they felt that identity was something to be shunned because it had only brought them and their remembrance pain and suffering.
Mm-hmm.
Why do I want to be known as a Hebrew? Every time we identify as a Hebrew, we get punished, whipped, and they try to kill us. We would rather meld and mold and melt into acceptable society and just become a part of that whole. Hence, let's unify to protect ourselves.
Okay.
Yah says, no, you're my people. You're a peculiar people. You are to be a set apart people. You are to become a set apart nation, not just a gang of folks, but a nation and a royal priesthood. And I set you apart as such. From this day on, you are to be known as my people. And this included those who had a bloodline lineage claim. And it also included a mixed multitude that were hangers on. He gave all of them the Torah after he identified them. The ones in the book of Acts in chapter number 2 were followers of Yeshua. They never lost the identity of being Hebrews in their particular situation, Jews in particular. They didn't lose that to receive Yeshua. Yeshua was, it's not that he was added on, but he became the reason for their identity. I have been raised in this culture and environment and with this identity because he is our Messiah. And Yeshua gave them the commission, go tell the other tribes world over about their Messiah. And if anyone else wants to come along, wonderful, whosoever will. That sense of abiding together, walking in right harmony together, they organized themselves, they did what they needed to do for 10 days, and then they were given the gift of the Ruach HaKodesh that empowered the gift of the Torah. The Torah and the work of the Spirit are not combative. They work completely in harmony. They work together. It's a wonderful thing to feel included, to be a part of. And if you have a rebellious streak a half inch wide, to be included in a separatist style community, such as Hebraic Roots is thought of, that's invigorating. Wrong reason. It's the wrong reason. I mean, we may be a collection of renegade rebels, but that can't be our identity. To unify around that is the wrong cause. That's not a whole lot different, Mike, than going back to Bereshit and finding out about the Tower of Babel. Those people were rallying around a religious cause as well, and they were rebels. That didn't work.
That's the thing, that rebellious people unifying can give you the Tower of Babel. It can also give you Korah.
Yeah.
Okay, so unity for the sake of unity. If you have a group of people that are dysfunctional at their very core, and you unify them, it is not going to take them out of their dysfunction.
Whoa. You get 2 stars. You've had 2 great statements today.
Okay.
That's good, Mike.
So yeah, and this is the whole thing of the nation of Israel is, yeah, I said this, I think, in last week's Living Torah. The nation of Israel is no stronger than the people of Israel. A family is no stronger than the individual members. So you can have a group of people that are dysfunctional that can come together in unity, and it becomes a unity of dysfunction, which the end result can be far greater or far more destructive than that which was at the beginning. We need to, first of all, deal with these people that were meeting in the book of Acts in an upper room on Mount Zion. These were people that had been dealing with themselves for three and a half years. They had been called, they had gone through many things of their own lives. They had seen the miraculous. They had been taken to the mountaintop and to the lowest valley. The instruction to go to Jerusalem until you be clothed with power is, and this is, I won't go back into this, is on my Living Torah message coming out tomorrow. That goes back to the book of Genesis, chapter 3, verse 21, that Adam and Eve were giving clothing of power. It is about identifying properly. And these men and women had to figure out how to identify in Him. They had to identify as covenant people in the one that was cutting the covenant for them. Until they came to that place, it was just going to be something, something else of craziness. Unity ended up coming through in 323. We see unity is called Constantine. And people say, and this is something I put into a little bit more for this my teaching this week, is that Marcion was the one that conceived the church. Constantine gave birth to the church. So anyone that wants to say, as I was taught, that the church was born in Acts chapter 2, I have to disagree with that. I would have to say Israel, which had already been birthed by the Father, was empowered in Acts chapter 2. Empowered to be a nation of unity for the right reason.
Okay. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, as you're saying, the right reason. I would, number one, I would clarify what Constantine created was a church system. As a system, there is a difference between church as a system and the kahal, the called out assembly. There's a difference.
See, to me, just to clarify, those two words of kahal and church do not fit in the same book to me.
No, I agree with that. You said unifying for the right reason. Typically, man's effort to unify is to create uniformity. Unity and uniformity are not necessarily synonymous. You and I are different. We have a lot in common. We've been friends for a long number of years, but you're different than me. And our wives will probably say, well, hallelujah for that. But in spite,
especially Laura,
especially Kathy, in spite of the differences between us, we operate in a sense of unity.
Yeah.
In B'nai Yosef that I'm a part of, those that are a part of that organization come from a variety of backgrounds and life experiences, but we are not unified out of uniformity. We have our differences, we acknowledge the differences, and we still choose to walk together. That seems to be where the Hebraic roots community has been missing it, is that we're all wanting the uniformity of pronunciations and calendars and experiences and applications and methodologies. That's never going to happen. No matter how brilliant you think you are, when you stand up and demand that everyone conform to your version, uniformity is not the issue. We must be unified around the honor and glory of Yeshua the Messiah and asking for what he said to ask for, that his kingdom come and his will be done on earth as it is in the heavens. Otherwise, we will reinvent the Tower of Babel. We'll create a religious experience with the hopes of reaching into the heavens and re-identifying Elohim to our own preference. And that only will bring about confusion. Let's
look at the basis of unity. Why do I want to be in unity with someone else? Now,
that's the question.
Yeah, and the answer to that can be something that is really, it can trip you up. I would say that many people want to be in unity so that they can feel accepted.
Okay.
Acceptance is not the right motivation for unity. Okay, if I'll take it for this in this realm. If I can just get around enough, if I'm wrong in something, but I can get around enough people that are wrong in the same thing, we'll all think we're right. It is like, name dropping. It's like, well, if I say, well, Barry Phillips and I agree on something.
Oh, well, that's dangerous.
Yeah, I know. So what? That may mean that we're both wrong. But in our minds, if we agree, then at least I feel good about being wrong about something because somebody else agrees with is wrongness a word? So being in unity just for the sake of unity so that I can be accepted in the crowd, the other aspect, the other side of that is I'm not going to be in unity with anyone because I want to continue in my rebellion, because if I can be different than everyone, then I'll be right.
I follow that, and it kind of scares me, but yeah, that makes sense.
Well, it's the heart is deceitful. Who can know it? Only the Father can know it. And so these are things that we have to work out within ourselves with the multitude of counsel. These are all aspects. You sent me a document this morning, and I'm already going to steal something very fast from you in the next few days. And I think this is your gold star for the day. Having an honest evaluation of yourself is the first step to making significant change.
Yeah.
So why were they told, go to the upper room where there's 10 more days that are going to be passing between the ascension and the outpouring of Shavu'ot? They were having to make some honest evaluations. Now, one of those is that they did a business meeting, and I remember the sermon that these were a bunch of idiots that, when there's nothing else to do, let's have a business meeting. No, they were looking at the scriptures. They knew that they were incomplete. As 11, they were incomplete, and they needed to become a complete unit once again. And so that's the purpose of doing the business meeting and having 12. And these people have been ridiculed for those things. I believe that there was, in those 10 days, it was probably some of the most intense evaluation of themselves personally and as a group that has ever been.
So they organized themselves. They completed themselves. They determined what their purpose of unity was all about. Um, there were some 500 who saw Yeshua after his resurrection. On the day that the outpouring took place, 380 of them were gone somewhere else. There was about 120 gathered together. So not everybody that joins your crowd is going to stay with you. You have to understand that numerical increase does not necessarily justify your cause. Well, look how many of us it is that believe this way. That doesn't mean anything. Oftentimes, those who hold the truth are very small in number. So, I mean, you can't say, well, the Hebraic Roots movement is so many thousand strong. It's evidence that we're right. No, it's not. If one man agrees with Elohim, then the truth is in the hands of one man. You can't go by numbers. Neither can you go by quality or personalities among you. Well, so-and-so is with us. That gives us credibility. No, it doesn't. If Yeshua is not with you, then you have no credibility.
Let me tell you an evidence for me. And yeah, you're right. I mean, people go to a large church or a large Messianic congregation thinking, well, it must be right because there's so many people going there. No. Some will go to somewhere that's just a few people because, well, the majority is not here, so they must be right. Yeah. The evidence of being in the right place is that the Father desires to join in also.
Yeah.
And that may be with 120, that may be where 2 or 3 are gathered. This past weekend, we had a number of people here for Shabbat. And I was reminded of how we used to, when I was pastoring in North Florida, we judged our services not on how many people were there. We judged our services on how many boxes of Kleenex we were going through.
Yeah.
And what reminded me of that is this past Shabbat, before we began the first song, about half the people in the room were reaching for Kleenex. Emotion is not always the evidence
No.
of his spirit. I got that. Emotion sometimes is just emotion. But when there is a reality, a reverence, fear of his presence in the room, if you're not reaching for a Kleenex box, you might be missing something.
It comes down to this.
Unify around a Kleenex box than around a doctrine anytime.
Let's wrap that thought up with, it's not belief versus feeling. You need a belief you can feel.
There you go. I'll go with that one.
Okay.
All right.
Well, our time's come to an end, Mike. We're not completely unified on everything, but I think we're heading in the right direction.
Probably not going to shoot each other.
No. Well, haMo'edim to everyone.
Anybody that's in the Jasper, Georgia area, I will be speaking there this Friday and also Shabbat. They can email me, send me email, whatever, email, text, instant message, WhatsApp, carrier pigeon, whatever. Be glad to get the information. I'll be at House of Scripture in Jasper, Georgia.
Oh, that ought to be good. That ought to be really good.
Going to be working with the Exodus Road Band a little bit. So, yeah, it'll be fun with the boys.
Well, my hellos to all of the folks there. haMo'edim to everyone. And for many, Shabbat Shalom that will be watching this weekend.
Got it.